Let's start with today's topic. Edge Integration Cell is a very new thing, came up recently. SAP has just bought this product or this feature very recently, developed it. SAP will, in future, you will see a lot of features and capabilities being will be added for improving this product, Edge Integration Cell, because when we will go through this, you will see that many of the PIPO customers as well will utilize this Edge Integration Cell in a way or so. So that's why it's one of the strategic feature offered by SAP, and SAP will definitely invest quite a lot in this product and this application to make it more to add more capabilities and features in future for this, given that the way they are promoting and branding this product. So what is Edge Integration Cell? So it's an hybrid integration runtime offered as part of SAP Integration Suite. So you all know, have you, I mean, you all in a way might have worked in some of the hybrid scenarios, right? What is actually an hybrid scenario? A hybrid scenario is always called when you are doing part of your integration on cloud. Yeah, let's say this part of the integration is on the cloud, and then you are passing some this information to on-premise, let's say to another middleware, be it PIPO or so on, and then you are asking this interface to do rest of the processing and then send this data to a target application, which could be also which definitely would be an target on-premise application. Yeah, this is a typical hybrid integration where you are using both cloud integration here, plus you are also using your on-premise PIPO integration. There could be a sender system here, which might be sending this data, uh, let's say Ariba or e-commerce applications like Hybris, Spiker, any one of this IBP or so on. So usually Ariba applications are all hosted on cloud. Let's say it can also be an e-com application, customer data platform, whatever. Yeah. So, and you want this information to go to your on-premise ERP, legacy ERP application, for example. Uh, so in this scenario, this is called as an hybrid implementation, where you are doing part of the transformation, part of the process orchestration over the cloud, and the remaining part is done on-premise. Let's say I had worked with a client which had both cloud CPI as well as PIPO, and their strategy was they had their legacy application, let's say their ERP application on premise. So they were not yet they had not yet migrated to S/4HANA, and also this S/4HANA instance was not on cloud. So they had the legacy ERP application. So their strategy was, although they already kickstarted their digital journey, yeah, but they were still behind in transforming their ERP application. And their strategy was, they said, our legacy ERP application, let's say an order data coming in, customer orders coming in from various channels. Yeah. Previously, the customer orders were also coming from on-premise non-SAP applications. Yeah, let's say for all the countries, for different countries, they were using different sales channels for pushing customer data, which were all on-premise here. And this order data was going to as an IDOC to a legacy ERP application, transforming into an IDOC, and all this was done by PIPO interface. The customer there, or the service managers and the customer of that client, they said, we still want only one interface to send customer data, customer orders to our legacy ERP application, and that should be PIPO. We do not want any other interface or any other technology or any other sender system to connect apart from PIPO, so that we know from which channel and from what source all the IDOCs for customer order IDOCs are coming into. We don't want to run to anywhere else to check, okay, part of the orders are coming from CPI directly, part of which are coming from PI, maybe some another source, and then it gets difficult for them to trace backtracking. Yeah. And one more thing, since it's a customer order data, they want this data to be processed from on-premise application. So this whole stack is nothing but on-premise here. Yeah, it's an on-premise stack here, and they want to keep it like this for some security reason, whatever. Yeah. So there could be such clients for whom the requirements could be quite specific, that we only want to integrate or we only want to connect our backend applications with an on-premise applications. We don't want to expose this data or integrate with any cloud application. So such scenarios are called as hybrid scenarios. Yeah, this is one of the examples for hybrid scenarios. And so basically that is where SAP bought this Edge Integration Cell to assist or to provide an option for hybrid integration. So it's called Hybrid Integration Runtime, offered as part of SAP Integration Suite, which enables you to manage APIs and run integration scenarios within your private landscape. So in short, what it means is now in cloud integration, we have seen as part of the course that we are doing everything like designing, building, deploying our iFlows, our APIs here, right? So we design it, that means we develop it, and we deploy it, and then we run it. And it all happens within the integration suite, the cloud integration runtime environment here. But with this Edge Integration Cell, SAP is trying to assist customers who wants to keep this hybrid, who wants this hybrid integration scenarios, right? So in a way, in a crux, what SAP is offering is you can still design and build your integration scenarios in cloud integration in Integration Suite, within Integration Suite cloud integration, but you can run it on premise. Yeah. So for example, in parallel, if I draw here another picture, let's say, and call this as Edge Integration Runtime. Yeah. So this is nothing but which is installed on premise here, and then it will do the thing what basically PI is doing. And this itself is also running on premise here. Similarly to what your PIPO was doing. So in a way, this is what Edge Integration Cell means. So you are designing, building your scenarios here, but you are running, that means you are deploying your interfaces from here to here, basically. This is where you are deploying your artifacts.
And what is the advantage compared to deploying artifact on cloud integration? This is not this is what I'm not getting, in fact.
Sorry, what is?
What is the interest? What is the advantage of doing that?
So
having artifact deployed on Edge Integration Runtime.
Yes. So now you see if you're deploying, let's say you have developed an API here, yeah, and now you have designed, you have built and developed an API, and you have now deployed your API in on your on-premise server. So in your on-premise server now, let's say an API which was built here, let's call it as customer sales order API. So with this API, you will receive sales orders for which customer shops basically. Now this API, you have the capability to host this API here as well. So which let's say I will draw it here. So this is a cloud instance. So this is a exposed over cloud and HTTP API for receiving sales orders. When you are deploying it here, this API will be then hosted in your on-premise server here. So then this API is not available on the cloud. This API is then deployed in your on-premise server, in your infrastructure, within your firewall, in your company. And then all these applications, which were native applications in your organization, which was earlier integrating with on-premise API of PIPO, can now integrate it directly to this API here, basically. So that is the whole purpose of deploying it, of running it on premise. Now you see your data is flowing internally within your infrastructure because all these applications are also in your firewall, in your infrastructure. So let's say these applications are used by different countries, but they are used to punch customer orders. They are used to push customer orders. And now these applications are calling the API, which is hosted within your infrastructure, within your on-premise server. And then when this Edge Integration API receives that data, it integrates this with it sends that IDOC, let's say, or transforms into an IDOC and sends to a legacy ERP application. So that is the whole purpose of this. So with this, you are now running this interface totally on premise, and none of these interactions is happening on the cloud. Otherwise, if you do not do this, if you are still designing, deploying, and designing, building, and deploying this API on the cloud, which it's possible to do so in cloud integration, but then this API will be available on the cloud here. So now what you will do is, let's say you are making PIPO end of life here, and you also do not have Edge Integration Cell, let's say. Now, somehow you need to migrate these applications. Now you need to tell all these applications, you cannot use our API, you were using it before, but now you have to call our cloud integration API, which is this in a way here. Now what happens, your data from your on-premise system goes to the cloud, and this application, so all these application needs to use the proxy servers to connect to a cloud endpoint, HTTP endpoint, API endpoint. Once the cloud integration receives this data using that API, it will then transform into an IDOC, and then from here, let's say via cloud connector or something like that, via cloud connector, it can then integrate that information to your legacy application. So you see this whole data is then flowing to the cloud, and then from the cloud, it is coming back to your legacy application. And probably you do not want some of your sensitive data to go out of your uh, organization, to go out of your firewall, to go out of your infrastructure. You don't want some kind of data objects to be processed from the cloud instance. And that's one of the reasons why this Edge Integration Cell came into existence, that you can, whatever you are designing and building in cloud integration, you can deploy an on-premise instance called as Edge Integration Runtime, and then you can process all these messages within your on-premise infrastructure itself. This is understood?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So that's the whole purpose of introducing this Edge Integration Runtime. Otherwise, without this as well, you are still capable to do so everything with cloud integration. But the only thing is, if within your company, within your if security wise and those things, if that's not an issue to process data using the cloud instances, and then bringing back that data into an on-premise systems, then you can still use straightforward uh, interfaces deployed over cloud integration runtime. Yeah, I mean, it still works fine. There's no problem in that. But if you're having some very security relevant data, things like that, let's say financial information or maybe some customer bank accounts or such kind of details coming in from a sender application, and you want that data only to be processed within your firewall, within your on-premise, because it's all protected by the firewall. So then you can do that by introducing Edge Integration Runtime, Edge Integration Cell. You don't want another middleware to host PIPO, let's say, because PIPO is going end of life. So why will you develop this interface here? Because in the next 3 or 4 years, you again need to migrate this because you will stop using PIPO. And when you stop using PIPO, you still need to process this data on premise. So, and if you are an SAP partner, if you are using SAP based applications, then you need some middleware capability of some middleware to process those messages. Because after PIPO, SAP is only branding cloud integration as one of their middleware. Yeah. So how will you do on-premise integrations? So then this is one of the capabilities why they came up with Edge Integration Runtime. So that's how the PIPO customers can migrate to Edge Integration Runtime to to continue doing some of the integrations totally on premise. Otherwise, you need to, let's say, there are many others, many other middleware application as well. For example, Dell Boomi, MuleSoft, and so on and on, which you can deploy and which you can host it within your infrastructure within a server, but then it will cost you an additional licenses and things like that. Plus that technology is not SAP based as well. So if you have hired SAP developers in your company, then they cannot work on MuleSoft as a technology if you're doing it here in on-premise, because then you need Java developers and another set of skill sets to be hired within your company to manage that middleware application. Yeah. So that was the whole purpose of SAP bringing in Edge Integration Cell, and to basically provide an opportunity to customers to to even SAP wants most of their customers to migrate soon, to plan their migration strategy fast enough. They don't want customers to wait until the product becomes end of life. Yeah. And not and then there are no features or enhancements offered on that product, because every day it's not about just new features, but every day on a particular product there has been always some of the enhancements happening with respect to different security attacks, malware attacks, hacker attacks. Every day there are new viruses which are coming in, and you need to protect your product to handle those kind of viruses. Yeah, some or the other way. You have to to basically import new set of libraries and things like that in your product to basically cater to those new threats which are increasing day by day. And now if SAP says we are stop providing any support here, that means it's a risk for an organization to basically continue to run a product which is not capable to handle threats which are coming in on each and every day, let's say. Yeah. So that's why SAP is aggressively promoting this edge integration runtime, because many of the customers, I have also been participated in multiple conferences recently. Always there is a question asked: what tools do you have when we have to migrate PIPO? What should be our strategy? Okay, you are offering cloud integration, but cloud integration runs totally on the cloud, but we still want some of the capabilities or some of the interfaces to run on premise. How can we do that? And like 6 months back, SAP had no answers to this. Yeah. So that's why SAP then bought this idea of running an instance of cloud integration, calling it as an edge integration runtime on premise. So it's basically you're designing and building. So your developers, your skill set of the developers, everything remains same, because you're also designing and developing your normal flows here, normal APIs here, which you will anyway use on a daily purpose. But for certain APIs which you only want to host it on premise, you can still use the same set of developers and team to develop it on the same portal. You don't need any additional licenses, anything, but you can then deploy it on the Edge integration runtime, offer an on-premise API, which the relevant applications can connect to, and then you can have an end-to-end scenario, which basically is running on-premise. So a sender application sending, calling an API, and once this API is called, the interface is triggered here, and this interface will do the required transformation, and basically you will be able to see the data in your target application. And basically, all the monitoring capabilities and all those things which we will see are still inbuilt within cloud integration. So that's the beauty of it. It's not like you have to uh, you need to understand a new application here. Yeah, you already know how the monitoring logs, how the interface logs and things like that can be monitored in cloud integration. So whatever interfaces which will go, whatever messages which will go from here are all visible in the monitoring section of cloud integration itself. Yeah, so that is also one of the part which we will see. So that is basically an high level idea of edge integration cell, and this is what is called as hybrid integration. Yeah, so then the hybrid deployment model of edge integration enables you to design and monitor your integration content in the cloud. That's what I said. You can design, build your content here. And I also mentioned just now that you can as well monitor this content here. So which means the messages which are being processed in edge integration runtime, all those messages can be monitored within the same cloud integration tenant. You don't need to have another operations team set up to monitor another set of application, which is edge integration. This is just called as edge integration runtime. It just offers a runtime environment to run your interfaces within your infrastructure. It's not offering any kind of separate applications like PIPO, where you have to log into that application and basically do all sort of operation capabilities. That operation capabilities will still be supported within cloud integration, which means all the messages which are running over this are all synced with cloud integration. And deploy and run your integration content in your private landscape. So this is nothing but which is done by this box here, Edge Integration Runtime. Yeah. So the first part, design and monitor, will be still be done in cloud integration, but deploying and running your integration will be done in on-premise. Yeah. So Edge integration set supports the following cases. For example, security or compliance. In many enterprises, sensitive data must be managed and controlled inside the enterprise firewall. That's what I said. There were many questions and many requests coming from customers in various fields let's say banking customers, financial customers, or customers having products which they are offering as a product services, which banks are using or which many companies are using. Let's say commission calculation. There's a company who has a commission calculation engine and a product. Yeah. Like let's say DS Pro, for example, if you have heard about. So those are the companies in a way, if you want to integrate with you want to do that integration using your on-premise landscape. You don't want that data to be going over the cloud just because of the security concerns. Yeah. So that's where a challenge was coming in because PIPO was getting end of life and you need some replacement to that. So that's how this sensitive data can be managed and controlled within enterprise firewall. So you can run your scenarios still within your on-premise infrastructure, within your firewall by having this edge integration runtime. So getting a migration path for SAP process integration customers. So that's how PIPO customers can migrate to edge integration runtime and can still do integration on premise. Yeah. So is used by many consumers for ground to ground integration scenarios. Edge integration cell allows these customers to benefit from the newest innovation that comes within SAP Integration Suite with the option to design and monitor integration content in the cloud and deploy and run the scenario exclusively in their private landscape. Okay, so that is what is Edge Integration Cell. Let's look at the, uh, this hybrid development using Edge Integration Cell. So now you all understood what is hybrid deployment. If you want to process data within your private landscape, you can achieve the same with Edge Integration Cell. For example, consider a case where you want to have sender and receiver system exchanging data that are exclusively hosted in an on-premise environment. So let's say these are sender systems, and then this is the target system. All basically are within an on-premise landscape. This is also within on-premise here. Yeah. So passing the data through the internet isn't always the best option. So our red line is not always the best option. Passing data over the cloud is not always the best option. You don't want to do that. You all want ground to ground integration happening. So to do this, you could still use the cloud-based environment of SAP Integration Suite to design your integration content. It does not matter where you design and develop it. Yeah. So because you're developing it in your lower environments, in your dev environment, anywhere. Developing is okay because you develop using some customized data or some manual data or things like that. You're not using actual production data for developing content. But instead of deploying the integration content on your cloud-based cloud integration, you can activate a private runtime location, for example, within the firewall of your and have this runtime process the messages. So if you deploy your interface here and run it, then you are using cloud integration runtime for running your iFlows, where the messages are processed over the cloud itself. But when you are using Edge Integration Cell, that means Edge Integration Runtime. That means you are deploying a scenario on the on-premise infrastructure, on your on-premise server, and running that messages within on-premise. So at runtime, the messages exchanged between sender and are exclusively passed through your private landscape as depicted in the following picture. So this is what the picture is. Let me zoom in a bit. Yeah. So as you can see in this picture, so this is still SAP Integration Suite. Here we are designing it still in within our cloud integration. So the dotted line above is cloud, but we are deploying it in Edge Integration Cell runtime location. That's the same APIs and the scenarios which you have designed. They are running it now in your private landscape within on-premise. And the sender system, instead of calling an API which is available over the cloud in your cloud integration, now this API is also available within your on-premise. So a sender system can call this API, which is within your local server, within your local on-premise infrastructure, and then you can integrate it with your receiver system, which is also on-premise. So that's what the capability Edge Integration Cell offers. You must use the cloud monitor app to manage your integration artifacts and security content, monitor the message processing. So all these are still the same as what we have seen. So that is what how beautifully SAP has managed to synchronize it, basically. We will see this runtime is realized as Kubernetes container in your private landscape. So this is nothing but it needs to be installed on a Kubernetes environment here within your on-premise landscape. That is where Edge Integration Cell runtime can be installed and hosted. This Edge Integration Cell runtime will be connected to our cloud integration. Yeah, definitely needs to be connected and also needs to be synchronized at regular intervals, because you're designing and you're developing artifacts here on a regular basis, which means the versions of these interfaces and artifacts are changing, and you also want that these versions are also synced with the version which is earlier deployed here. So you always want your latest content to be deployed here, and that's why these two environments needs to be in sync, basically. Yeah, that is more about Edge Integration Cell, high level. Now we will see a bit into to our detail level.